Morning, everyone. We will call the commission meeting to order. First two items are the secretary's report and the treasurer's report. If there are no adjustments to either one of those, I would ask for one motion to approve both. Any comments on either one?
I move to approve.
Motion's been made to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Next item is the presentation by Andrew Grice regarding the audit report. Andrew, you got the show.
Andy Grice, we're going to be here to present the audit report for the year ended December 31st, 2020. I do have a PowerPoint to share just to highlight our audit report and also some financial analysis. Hopefully bring that up here next.
They're making that switch for you, Andy. There you go. You're all set.
Great. And so the next slide highlights our independent auditor's report. And what we like to do is just to remind the board of our role as the auditor and then the role of the board and also the role of management. So next slide highlights that independent auditor's report. And again, just wanted to reiterate that these financial statements are management's responsibility. It's their job to cut the checks, take in the revenues, make payroll, record all that information on the general ledger, and it's our job as your auditor to come in, test, examine, look at the underlying documentation to support the numbers and disclosures in your financial statements, and ultimately give an opinion on your financial statements. And happy to report that we're giving a clean or an unmodified opinion on the financial statements. That's the best that we can give as your auditor, meaning this is a true and accurate presentation of the financial position of the entity here at the end of the year in all material respects. We also issue our report on Minnesota legal compliance. We look at certain legal provisions and determine whether anything causing any non-compliance occurred during the year, and we are required to report any of those findings, and we had no findings to report. And then last, we also issue our communications letter. Audit standards require that we understand your internal controls over financial reporting and report any significant deficiencies or material weaknesses in internal control. And we had one significant deficiency related to a lack of segregation of accounting duties, meaning there is certain overlap in certain accounting functions. So whenever in a certain accounting process, whenever an individual has access to more than one function, so that's initiating, recording and processing, custody of assets, or reconciling or reporting. If they have access to perform multiple of those functions, we do have to recognize that internal control deficiency. So it's just something to be aware of. It's not uncommon with an office size that the entity has here, but something just to remain aware of. Next, we are highlighting some charts and graphs that are included in the communications letter. And the first is taking a look at the budget performance for the commission. And the budget called for just under $5 million in revenues, about $700,000 in expenditures, and anticipated an increase or revenues exceeding expenditures by about $4.3 million. Recognized transfers out to the CCX Media Fund of $4.8 million, and anticipated a change in fund balance of a decrease of about $506,000 for the year. Actual revenues came in at $4,766,000, about $229,000 less than anticipated. The budget was based on prior year revenues. However, there was a miscellaneous revenue last year for a Comcast settlement that didn't occur again here this year, so that was the main driver for the budget variance there. The expenditures came in under budget by about $56,000 due to a reduction in expenditures, and as a result, revenues exceeded expenditures by $4.1 million. The transfer to the CCX Media Fund came in at $3.7 million, about $1 million less than anticipated, and as a result, this fund experienced an increase in fund balance of about $369,000. Next, we have the CCX Media Fund, and this fund accounts for most of the operating expenditures, and this budget called for $4.8 million in expenditures and anticipated no change in net position in this fund. Revenues came in at about $128,000, and expenditures came in at $3,766,000, so about $1 million less than anticipated. One thing to note here, this is a full accrual fund, so with the pension amounts being recorded and the total pension or the net pension liability being recorded, any changes in deferred items and pension expense has to be recognized as an expenditure, and there was a negative pension expense this year, so that drove expenditures down. There was also reduction in costs, less tech supplies than needed. There was less advertising this year, so that cumulative effect there was the main driver for the $1 million budget variance on the expenditure side. As a result, there was a smaller amount due and as far as transfers in, so that came in at $3.7 million, and as a result, had an increase in net position of about $114,000, ending net position at $1.8 million. That sometimes can be alarming to look at your net position and say, why are we $1.8 million negative? But this fund is full accrual, so it recognizes a net pension liability that you don't have to write a check for. You do have to make annual contributions, and if we were to factor that net pension liability out from the financial statements, it would end at a deficit net position of about $24,000, so fairly break even there at the end of the year. Next is just a highlight of total budget and actual revenues for both funds. And you can see here the trend is downward. So back in 2017, revenues were at about $5.7 million, and we're down to about $4.9 million here in 2021. And also has the budget column there just to provide some additional perspective there. And the next slide shows that same information but for expenditures. And you can see here that back in 2017, expenditures were at $5.5 million, and we're down to about $4.4 million in expenditures here in 2021. The next slide provides the allocation of revenues by source. So it just gives you an idea of the revenue stream and the proportion to total revenues here. And the franchise fee in 2021 represented about 81% of total revenues, followed by the access fee at 19.3%. And that was the access fee was consistent with the prior year. The franchise fee did increase from 75% up to about 81% here in 2021. And again, that relates to the Comcast settlement that was received back in 2020. So that was kind of an anomaly back in 2020, and 2021 probably gives you a better picture of that allocation. The next slide just provides that same information, and again, just to highlight that total revenues have decreased here over the 5 years presented at a low point here in 2021. And those are the high points from the financial audit this year. So just next, I'd like to open it up for any questions.
Any questions? Yes, hi, Bill.
So we earn 1.5%, I guess that's not in this report, but one of your reports says you earn 1.5% on their certain monies and 1.1%. Do you look at that, or is that only our person that we hire to manage our investments that looks at whether that is what we should be getting?
Yeah, that would probably be more on the investment side. So we report, what actually occurred, the actual earnings that you had for the period, and they would give you a better idea as far as, why that was, and maybe the
And you have no opinion as you look at other entities that are similar to us, whether we're in the same ballpark as everybody else?
That's probably fairly consistent with what I've seen as far as other local governments.
Okay.
Other questions for Andrew? If not, I'd like to have a motion to accept the audit report.
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you. Just want to extend a thank you to Wendy as well. I know we bother her quite a bit throughout the audit process, so I appreciate all your work on that.
Thank you. Next item is the proposed budget. Dave, you want to comment on that before we refer it?
Would be happy to. Thank you, Al, and I will echo Andrew's thought related to Wendy. Wendy did a lot of work related to this budget. Obviously, with transition of Mike Johnson retiring, Wendy was a key factor in helping us through the budget process and knows the formulas, knows all of the information that we have in this document. So thank you, Wendy, for your help with that. Also, thank you to Julie from Abdo. As you know, we've been working with Abdo looking at a accounting evaluation and also a HR evaluation. So they were very helpful in reviewing some of our budget documents as we move forward and also beginning to review some of our projection documents, and that is something that we will continue to work with them on. Their final report comes to us in the end of September, so we're very excited to get that information and look at some of the formulas and processes as we move forward from a financial and HR standpoint here at CCX Media. I'll quickly take you through the document, and again, the hope is after this discussion that it will be moved to the executive committee that in traditional form has taken a further look at the budget process. Table of contents outlines a number of items that you'll find within this packet. I'll highlight a few that we'll spend a little bit more time on. Number 4, number 5, number 6 related to the subscribers and some revenue counts and projections. Also, the budget notes, number 8, I'll be going through some of the budget notes. You'll see the numbers in the document ahead of that, but the notes might help you see some of the reasons behind some of the changes. Also, we'll take a look at the capital budget of both CCX Media, which again accounts for a lot of the equipment purchases that we might make, and then the capital budget for the commission, which really takes care of the building and some of the items that we have here. Next page talks about the mission vision of CCX Media, just to have that in the packet and to keep you up to date on some of these statements that we stand by. Our approved 10-year targets were back in 2016, so something that we'll be looking at and reviewing as we move forward. But again, a document just to have that in your folder for your reference. Compensation goals, again, you see some of our 5 key points related to compensation. Obviously, there have been some changes here related to staffing with some retirements of some longtime staff people, and also some staff people moving on to other careers and other opportunities. And we, as I'm sure many of you in cities, have had some difficulty in rehiring from some of those positions. So we continue to work at that, and we'll continue to do that, but that's a factor we're facing as well. Next page talks about the revenue and expense outlook, and it relates to some of the graphs and charts you'll see on the next few pages. So what I'll do is just go through some of the written information and refer you to the graph that shows that in a pictorial way. Cable subscribers and revenue, if you turn to the next page, you'll see the graph that relates to that information that has the subscriber count. And again, the peak was back in 2010 with about 80,000 subscribers. You see the trend that has happened over time with the cord cutting and with the opportunities for streaming services. So at the end of August, that subscriber count is now 45,652. So obviously something that we're keeping a close eye on, and the board over and commission over previous years has been well aware of. And again, subscriber count directly affects our 2 major sources of income, which would be the franchise fees and the community TV programming fee, and we'll talk about those further. The next graph spells out the revenue from franchise fees and also the community TV programming fee. And again, between 13 and 17, you see there was average growth of about 3.5% per year. Starting in 2018, that's when the tide really turned and we began to see more of the cable subscriber loss. The decline in revenue has continued through 2022, about a 3.6% loss by the end of 2022 compared to 2021. And you can again see the 11-year history of what has happened related to subscriber counts and how that affects our franchise fees. Those two directly tied together, as the franchise fee equals 5% of the cable company's gross revenue from cable video services. So again, 5% just from the cable-related services is what we're looking at there. Does not include high-speed internet or the telephone services. Bottom line on that graph relates to the community TV fee. Again, this fee is calculated by multiplying the number of monthly subscribers by the $1.36 per subscriber. That was adjusted at a one-time point from $1 to $1.36 in 2014. So that's why you see the jump happening at that point. And again, that fee is also declining as a result of the cable subscriber loss. Refranchising, something that we'll talk about in the executive committee later today, get an update on that process. And refranchising, again, is something that might have some effect, and Mike can inform us more about that related to other systems and how they handle that community TV fee and if it might have a different formula set to it. Next page discusses our revenue projections, and so many numbers on that page. As you can see, I'll just highlight a few as we look through this. And again, we've done some adjusting over this past year through this budget process to look at some more realistic numbers related to our projections and also other income that will be coming in through some of the services we can provide, and I'll touch on that. Again, through the strategic planning process, we've talked about bringing in other revenue, other types of income to help us through this process. This year, we're looking at a 4% projection related to the franchise fees, projecting that as a minus 4% for the franchise fees coming in. And looking at the local programming fee, the second line you'll see, looking at an 8% decrease in those fees. And again, that's higher because it's not based on the revenue related to the cable subscribers, but it's based solely on the subscriber count. So one home, one count. Then you see the total franchise and PEG fees added together as those progress over the years, and the difference per year. And again, the first year, 2021, are the actuals from last year. All of the rest of the years looking to 22 and beyond are projections for those years. Next is invested funds. That was mentioned just a moment ago, and some of the changes that we're seeing in our invested funds. And again, as we look at the projections and the revenue going down, that has an effect obviously in our invested funds. Next line is total operating expenses, and we're doing what we can to keep those expenses in line and on a really flat zero status. And again, the number you're seeing in 2021 is the actual number. So again, that relates to what actually happened in 2021, and the rest of the lines are projections, and we're projecting that we will come in under that line you see for the projected expenses for the operating budget here in 2022. Capital City Replacement Fund relates to the funds that go to the cities for some of the equipment that's used to produce their meetings. There's also a flat fund and then a graduated fund, and those are related in that particular line. Equipment replacement, I mentioned that, that's tied to the fees that come from the PEG fees, and that number, again, we're looking at how we can plan that and use some projections moving ahead. And ABDO has been very helpful with us in that area and looking at some of the internal systems related to capital equipment, years that equipment has been with us, what's the replacement schedule for those. So we are looking for ABDO for some assistance in that, and again, we'll have more details as we move through this budget process. And into the next year, we're going to see a lot of work with ABDO looking at how those projections move forward. Total expense line, you see how that progresses throughout the years. And then the balance and interest statement, again, as we've looked at some more realistic numbers than what we've looked at from past years related to the other revenue, we are looking at that line decreasing and certainly looking at ways to increase that revenue and do other things that will help us as we get into the longer picture. Bottom two charts on that page, again, relate to the top numbers related to the revenue projections, and again, looking ahead at what those projections are, both for the franchise fees and also for the fees related to the PEG fees. Next page takes you to the actual budget, and again, you have all of the numbers on the next 3 pages. And then after that, there are some budget notes. I will hop ahead and just refer to a few of the budget notes, but again, you can look at the line by line if you would like to on the pages ahead. Personnel, we have talked to, as we have in past years on a regular basis, the cities to see what the projection is as far as increase for salaries. And the average increase for all of our cities here in the Northwest area that are part of the Joint Powers Agreement are 3%. And so that is what we're basing our projection on for salary increases at a 3% increase. And again, we're having some longtime employees retiring. That's freeing some funds that we can use for replacements for some of those positions, but also looking at positions that might help us on the revenue part in our creative services area. We have found, as we have piloted some projects with different organizations, that we need more staffing in that area. If we have more projects come in to earn money from, we need more staff to be able to produce those projects. So we're looking at some of the more production type staff people possibly coming in and helping us, and also some backups to some of the functions that we currently have. Because right now what happens when we do a lot of these extra projects, or we need backups for some of our other positions throughout the company, we're pulling people from creative services to come in and back up for our graphics within our studio and some of our news directing, and also helping Javi down here with this part of the facility. So we're having to pull some people to be backups right now, and we'd like to backfill with some positions to be able to help in that as we move forward. Health, life, dental, I'll mention quickly. You see some decreases there related to the age banding that we're doing, also some combined services from Health Partners. There is a slight increase related to the life insurance due to a new provider there. No major changes in personnel, miscellaneous, equipment, supplies, repair. You will note some changes related to the vehicles, and thank you to your help last year in amending our budget, because we had the leases ending on our 5 vehicles that we use for coverage of news, sports, information in your area. And we determined it was best to go ahead and purchase those vehicles, which again, thanks to your help, we did that this past year. So that has an impact in that budget line as we move forward. Minor changes in equipment, office supplies. Contractual services, there are a few increases that you will see there in the 6130 lines, and that is related to the payroll administration program. And that is something that I'll mention a little bit later related to our capital. And many of the cities are part of LOGIS. And so you all know the situation that we're in as well relating to some of these payroll administration and HR programs that are being discussed. And Ann Norris is very involved in that process from Crystal. I know Anna's shaking her head right now, but there is a big meeting this afternoon, as a matter of fact, that Wendy will be representing us at to learn more about that process and what LOGIS is projecting and recommending for not only the cities in the area that are part of LOGIS use, but also for other joint powers agreements like ours and some of the projections they're making. But it's early in the process. I think a lot of the cities and our organization as well have lots of questions to ask. So we're trying to find out more about how that might impact our budget. What we have projected here, if it is to go through, is that about half of it potentially would be implemented within this next year, and then potentially more in 2024. But again, more to come related to that, but we wanted to put something in the budget because we know that is something that LOGIS is talking about. Few other items related to contractual services take you down to line 6226 through 28. We have some software, hardware support, maintenance on some of the items that are not only for our production truck that we use, but also for this studio, for the Create Studio. And so there are some new contractual arrangements related to support for those new pieces of equipment that are not cheap. As you look at support services for some of this technical equipment, they are rather expensive, and so we wanted to reflect that within the contractual budget. No major changes in information and promotions in other, or again in building operational expenses, a few increases there related to inflation. So, but we are handling all of those, we think, in a very nice manner. Next page I'll take you to, final couple pages of the budget presentation would be the proposed capital budget. And you see the 5 areas that we are looking at, proposed items within the capital budget. The administration, again, that whole amount is related to the ERP system that Logis is again recommending related to finance and HR services. And again, something we wanted to put in the budget because that would be the implementation cost, which again was sticker shock to us, and I know to some cities as well. So that is something we're discussing. And thankfully, Abdo is looking at that as well. They're looking at it from both a financial and HR standpoint and giving us some direction related to that. Events, a few adjustments there, air conditioning and generator updates for that truck. It is a old vehicle, but we have kept it running. It has had equipment inside of it replaced, but some of those systems that operate the truck and some of the air conditioning, cooling in that are getting old and are not sufficient for the new type of equipment in the truck. So one of the options we looked at is, do we want to purchase a new truck, a new Shell truck, and be able to implement that? But we looked at some of the prices and the changes that have happened in full trucks over the past couple years. And as you might imagine, it has gone up at an unbelievable amount. So we are suggesting that it is best to go with the existing truck we have, but update a few of the systems that are necessary to keep the crew, number one, and the equipment in cool and working order. IT, again, we do a lot of work related to Logis, and so some network switches, servers, UPS replacements are part of that $193,000. And then news is really something that encompasses multiple categories. It's news, it's sports, it's cities, programming as well. Our cameras that we've been using for E&G footage are quite old as well and have served us very well past their normal time that they would live. And so we are at the point where some of the cards and some of the systems that take the data from the cameras to our editing equipment are not going to be supported as we move into the future. So we've held on about as long as we can, but we know now that technology is not going to allow us to hold on to those cameras any longer. So we are proposing a purchase of new cameras. We are decreasing the number of cameras we'll purchase from 8 down to 6. We think we can be efficient in the use of those cameras. So the grand total on the capital for CCX Media equipment would be $499,000. Next page is just some further documentation if you're interested in looking at any more of the details related to those capital budget items. Sean Christie is here with us running camera today, and so he obviously works very closely with Logis through our IT services and can help answer some of the questions there if you might have them. Quickly to the commission budget, just touch on this quickly. All slight decreases in many areas. Again, we've been very closely watching that budget and trying to underspend as we can, and so $16,000 decrease in that budget. And again, the bottom line relates to some of those capital expenditures related to city grants that I mentioned earlier. So a total drop when you add them all together of about $44,000. Next page, just a short recap then of the totals for the budget projections as we move forward. You can see the 2022 budgets and the 2023 budgets and the adjustments that are there. Again, very slight change, 1.58% related to the CCX Media budget, and actually a drop, as I just mentioned a second ago, in the commission budget of 10.93%. The two coming together, a increase of 1.15% in our total budget as you move forward. The budget notes related to the commission budget. Again, if you want to look at any further information related to the commission notes. And final note, I'll mention the building. Again, very honored to have this building and all paid for, so that is obviously a big feather in our cap and the cap of the commission here. Some of the items related to keeping up the building, roof maintenance, you see some work in the garage in a couple areas. Some additional concrete work. We have been doing bits and pieces over the past years. We have some additional work that we like to do out front to keep that up to speed. And then some AC unit replacement within our master control and create control room area. Some of the two key rooms that have a lot of equipment and have staff in them during the day that we want to make sure are cooled properly. And there are a few systems that are old that happen to be placed in the ceiling or in the walls very close to equipment, and we don't want them dripping. That would be a major problem for us, dripping on some of our gear, so we are trying to be proactive and be ahead of that. With that, that is the presentation. Chair Al Madsen, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for Dave? Bill?
So I kind of wish these had page numbers, but on the last page of the, part that is right before these line item things, and that this was somewhat explained in the accountant's notes. It says capital improvement and reserve fund. It goes from 2021 actual, 5,561,000, down to 2027 projection of 1,307,000 for capital improvement and reserve fund. The accountant kind of explained that, but could you further explain why we're going from 5.56 down to 1.3 in that reserve fund?
Very good question, and again, something that we are talking to Abdo about and getting some assistance with them on some of those projections. A lot of this formula is formulas that Mike and Wendy have been using for years, and so we are evaluating with them, are those the correct formulas to use? The one item that would note is up on the top, line number 4, the estimated other revenue. We have adjusted those lines last year, some of those lines as it got towards the 2027 timeframe. We're looking about $700,000 of other revenue coming in. And we have been looking at what's happened over the past year or two, and we will hit that projection of $100,000 in other revenue this year, this 2022 year. So we are just trying to be more thoughtful in those projections. And those projections, as they came down, obviously affected that bottom line. So we're trying to be a little bit tighter on it, but obviously it has effect as we go further out into the future.
But need we be concerned that we're going from a $5.56 million capital
Yes.
improvement and reserve fund down to 1.3?
We are very concerned. And so again, and that is something that Wendy and I have talked about, and I have asked many questions, not only to Wendy, but to Abdo, of how is that calculated? What is the formula we're using for that? And why is there such a change? And the change that came up was related to those other incomes. But that amount, in my estimation, is not enough. So that is something, Bill, that we'll be taking a much closer look at. And I would look at help with Abdo as we come back in November for final approval, that we could look at some of these projections and get a better understanding of those.
And what is in the capital improvement and reserve fund? I mean, what are we saving that money for?
I will defer to Wendy to help a little bit on that line.
I would think it's for capital equipment and maybe a building or whatever, but what is it?
The capital improvement reserve fund, those are all the funds that we have invested, all the expenses, it's bottom line after we take everything out, what's left over. So it's what's remaining, what we have remaining in our budget. A long time ago, and I don't remember when, but we were supposed to try to keep money set aside for emergencies, so we always try to keep a little bit of money balance in there. As we've been going through this, we have started decreasing everything, because our revenues are going down, our fees are going down. We were looking at, when Mike and I were doing this originally, we were looking at, hopefully seeing more money come in through for higher projects. That's not happening yet, because it's still early in the process. We're starting to try to cut our operating expenses down so that we can try to build that number back up. We do need to tweak this a little bit more. I was talking with Dave and I have been talking about this endlessly and trying to figure out where we can cut and where we can save to try to get that number back up. If you were to have last year's budget, you would see that had a $3 million balance.
Correct.
And then when we adjusted all those numbers down to be more reflective of what we think is actually gonna happen, it brought that number down to 1.3. So we wanna look and see what we can do to bring that number back up, to make it more healthy for us.
So you are correct, Bill, that it is more alarming this year as we look at that than it was last year. And again, we have changed some of the projections in that, and I think it's something that we need to take a much closer look at the Budget Committee as well.
Thank you for allowing us to do that. That'll be fun.
Other questions for Dave? If not, I'd like to have a motion to refer this to the Executive Committee and the Budget Committee.
So
Motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Information items. Mr. Bradley.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning, everybody. Be a short legal report. You'll be happy to know today. Yeah, September 15th is a big day for us at the law firm. On September 15, 1998, I started our law firm. So it's our 24th anniversary, I think, today. But then, more importantly, I have a new law partner starting today, Nancy Werner. And Nancy has been the general counsel at NATOA, which is kind of the main municipal telecommunications group in the country that works on.
Her name is so familiar.
Yeah, for sure. You would have seen her at all of the
Right.
MACTA, NATOA, ACM conferences across the country. So big change for us. So we're really excited about that. And I think she's going to do great things for our clients, including this organization as we go through renewal. But I did want to just touch on the legal report, which is in your packet. But one of the things that we put in the legal report was just a reminder that the league is still going through their the policy development right now. And for those of you who are involved in developing policy at the league, you've just seen the report from Andrew and from Dave on what's happening with your franchise fees and your PEG fees. And you all know the reason why those fees are going down, and those fees are what drives this organization, funds this organization. I think it is important to start mentioning it more and more as the league is developing their policies on, how do we address that issue in funding local media. And there are different ways to go about it, but at least get the conversation going and make it a priority at the league to address it. So I would just encourage you all to start doing that. I know Dave is involved in MACTA, and MACTA's talking about it too, but I think the more people that bring it forward to the league so that they know that it's an issue, the more likely it is to become a league priority in the future. And with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Questions for Mike? If not, move on to the next item. Communications, Dave?
Thank you, Chair. Just a few items in the packet for you to review related to broadband, related to the economy. Thought it was an interesting article to show how that growth in broadband and people connecting through the internet is also having a trickle-down effect to the economy in general. So put that in the packet for you to take a look at. Related to what Mike just mentioned, some of the support related to community television, I included a packet that came from Wisconsin Community Media with the League of Women Voters taking an official national stand in support of PEG TV. So again, building some of that support is going to be very important for us as we move forward and talk about the importance of community TV and PEG throughout the country. The last is streaming claims largest piece of TV viewing pie in July, and that was the first time that had happened. So again, we've talked about streaming and how that is growing, and again, that is grabbing bigger pieces of the viewing pie than it ever has in the past. So a projection, and now that projection that has talked about over the years is coming true, as you see related to the graph on the back of that communications item. So some information for your review that tie into some of the things that we've been talking about this morning.
Any questions for Dave? Okay, if not, Dave, you want to handle the next item?
Be happy to. Sad to have to,
Yeah,
but
it's
happy
true.
to do it.
Yeah.
Crystal City Manager Ann Norris will be retiring from the city at the end of October, and Ann has served on our commission for many, many years, the board as well, 22 years in fact, and during that time also served on various committees, as you see. And we thank Ann for her dedicated work to what we've been doing here through community television, CCX Media, and the commission. She'll also be ending her service as a board member, commission member, and today is her final meeting with us. So, Ann, we're thankful for your dedicated service and wish you the best in retirement.
Thank
we
you.
do have a card for you. I tried to talk Ann into a plaque or something for her wall, but she said,
No.
I won't have a wall. So staff has signed a card.
Oh,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much for your
Thank
service. Any comments if you'd like to make?
Well,
Speech.
thank you very much. Thanks for the recognition. Actually, the reason this group works so well is because of the fabulous staff at CCX and the commitment of the commission and the board of directors. But I do really want to emphasize the reason CCX works so well is the incredible staff. So thank you, staff, for making the rest of us look good and doing all the hard work. So keep up the good work. It's going to be a challenge, I think, as we just saw with franchise and peg fees.
There will be, no doubt about that. So,
So
Ann,
thank you.
for your,
Thank you, Ann.
all your hard work and
Thank you.
dedication, so greatly appreciated, so. One of the nice things with Ann is I never had to worry about choosing my words carefully, so.
I'm thin-skinned.
Yeah. Appreciate everything you've done. Any other questions or comments before we adjourn the commission meeting? Okay, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. We are adjourned the commission meeting.
All right, and we'll roll right into the Board of Directors meeting, since Mark and I are here and no one else from the Executive Committee for the Board of Directors. We'll call that meeting to order. You have a consent agenda that includes the May 19th, 2022 meeting minutes and the treasurer's report. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thank you, Riley. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Daryl. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Alrighty, thank you. Consent agenda is approved. First, action item is the proposed budgets. I suspect it's the same as we just listened to at the commission meeting.
That is correct. So again, we'd be looking for the same motion here from the CCX Media Board to move that to the Executive Committee.
So moved.
Thanks, Riley. Is there a second? Thank you, Mark. Moved and seconded, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Alrighty, budget will be reviewed by the Budget Committee. Next, Dave, do you want to talk about the LOGIS appointments?
Yes, Madam Chair, staff was contacted by LOGIS Executive Director Chris Miller inquiring about representation from CCX Media on the LOGIS Board of Directors after the retirement of Mike Johnson. We're entitled to have a director and an alternate director designated to the LOGIS Board. Attached is a resolution to appoint Wendy Brierly as director and myself as alternate director to the LOGIS Board of Directors. We recommend the passage of that resolution.
Any questions for Dave? Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you. Thanks, Riley. Moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the resolution is approved. Next, Tim is bailing. Sorry, how could that be? Do you want to take the?
There seems to be something in the water, right, Ann?
Yes.
So again, very sad to have to announce this, but honored to speak highly of Tim Gaffron. Tim will be retiring from CCX Media effective September 23rd. So
Wow.
right around the corner, Tim has been an essential part of our organization. Get this, for over 37 years. So since the early days across the street. From his start with educational institutional work, he has been the go-to guy for many of the cities, obviously, when it comes to meeting coverage, any type of AV needs, updates of your council systems. Tim has been there, made a huge difference in the communities that we serve in many, many ways. Tim has contributed in countless other parts of our organization, so sometime if you sit down with Tim, you'll have to ask him, what other things did you do here? And you better have a couple hours because it'll take that long to go through them. So again, very thankful for the dedicated service of Tim Gaffron and wish him well in his retirement. Tim, if you would like to say a word or two now, and I know you have a special guest with you today as well. Right there.
Thank you. Thank you for the recognition and for giving me a minute today to, 37 years ago, my career could have gone a whole lot of different directions. And even before that, when I was 16, when I chose to work at Shakey's instead of Super Value. Who knows? But as the realtor we recently worked with kept telling us, if it's meant to be, it will work out. and it worked out, I guess. One of those things that worked out is I met my wife of 30-plus years, Chris, when she was a volunteer here in our
Oh, fun.
events production staff in the last century. After next week, she will no longer have to listen to me complain about work. Thank you, Chris, for your support.
You're welcome.
Over the last 3 decades and in this decision, some of you I've known for a long time, some of you I haven't met exactly, so. Some of you have crossed paths in other parts of our lives, whether it be at church and scouts, just in the community, at community events, things like that. So it's not just work, it's life. I went out and looked at the bronze plaque on the front wall a couple of weeks ago to see who was still around, and a few of you have been here as long or longer than I have. Bill, Jim, Dr. Orrin, who we lost this spring. Looking at the names, I was reminded of my first interview for the higher education specialist back in 1984. Sitting there in a conference room across the table from Bill Lito, James Scherter, Bill Schrag, and Tom Trippett. That was pretty intimidating. As Bill probably knows, he knows most of those names. But I guess it worked out. So, keeping this short, I just want to thank the board, commission, staff, management for having me all these years, and for the opportunity to be part of your communities. Thank you.
I know the real reason Tim is retiring. He doesn't want to do the Crystal Chambers a 3rd time. But I do appreciate, I want to echo what Dave said. I really appreciate Tim's help with all our council chamber changes, fixes, troubleshooting during the pandemic with Zoom. You're always there. Thank you for making our meetings go live no matter what, no matter how many gray hairs it gives you. So thank you. Enjoy your retirement. Live long and prosper, isn't that the right phrase?
One other quick fun note about the dedication of Tim. We were talking over the past week about, again, some of the processes that he goes through on a regular basis to make sure your meetings are going. And get this, he will go help out, get some meetings started on the south end of the area, and then he has a strategy on occasion of going to the New Hope Hy-Vee and sitting in the parking lot to make sure all of the meetings in the central part of the suburbs start and are going effectively before he heads north, because he knows he passes Maple Grove to go home. So that's the dedication of Tim, to do whatever it takes to be close by, so in case something happens with your meetings, he can be there to help out. So thank you so much, Tim.
It's a
Yeah, thank you.
self-preservation thing.
That too. Thanks, Tim, for everything.
Yeah, really. All right, thank you. Staff reports.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We will have a few different staff people come out and give you a few updates of what we've been doing over the recent months, and we'll begin with Shannon. There she comes around the corner. Update on CCX News.
Hello, everyone. I will be brief, but I do want to hit on a few things on what's in your packet, starting with the story at the top. We put together a story, reporter Sonia Goins and photographer Adam Jukala, on something we were hearing from local police departments. People were modifying handguns to turn them into automatic weapons. And so we worked closely with police departments. We worked with the ATF to put together a very thoughtful story. It was over 6 minutes in length, so that's a lot of work. It's a lot of TV time there. And it was well received. We did get thank you notes from different police departments and the ATF for putting that out there. A few days later, we saw some of the stations in Minneapolis do a very similar story. We know they're watching, so I'm really proud of that piece. If you haven't seen it, please go on our website and check it out. And then I'll just highlight the fact that it's election season. As you all know, it's hard to walk through our hallways or the parking lot without running into a candidate. We have 107 candidates that we're trying to facilitate this year for candidate statements. We allow everyone 45 seconds to come on and tell who they are, why they're running for office. They can say anything they want as long as they don't attack anyone. And that number's a little bit lower than it usually is. Usually we have over 120, fewer school board candidates running this year. It's not unusual for Osseo or Robbinsdale districts to have close to 20. They both have under 10, and then there's several races that are uncontested. So just seeing fewer candidates this year. We have commitments from around 70 candidates who have either come through or planning to come through. Our plan is to launch all those statements on October 1st unless we get all of the candidates for one race through sooner than that. And gold star for Crystal. All your candidates have been through, so you guys are already out there. But I'll just add that, you know, we see a lot of negative stuff on the television, especially right now regarding politics, but to me it's really refreshing to see some of these first-time candidates running for office because they really just want to better their community, or they have a skill set that they think they can offer and make their community better. So I do have a passion for this. I think it's important to get that information out. So look for those all to be published on October 1st, and then we'll shift our attention to Election Day, which will be here before we know it. So that's what I have. Thank you. If you have any story ideas, send them our way.
Thanks, Shannon.
Thanks, everybody.
Next item, let's see if we can bring Tim back over.
was
Tim, do you
gonna
have a
say.
few more words for us? The final cities update from Tim Gaffron. Lots of valuable information, as always.
But not as emotional. All of our report is in your packet. All of our member cities have returned back to in-person meetings now. Along this COVID journey that we've all been on together, many have discovered that the public really likes the ability to participate remotely, and so that's become kind of the standard thing now. So we've been accommodating that as we go along, making sure that we incorporate those capabilities into new systems as we build them, and figuring out how to add those capabilities to existing systems. Number of meetings that are being broadcast has crept up over the year. We're averaging about 30 a month. September and October are very busy months with candidates forums, and we have 43 live city council chambers based events this month in September. So busy trying to keep them all staffed, keep the schedule up to date, and making sure we get all those forums processed and replayed where they're supposed to be and stuff. And Cindy up at the front desk has been working a lot on the scheduling of that stuff. Council chambers upgrade projects. Golden Valley has been a long and arduous project. Cheryl's laughing. I think we're in the final stages of it. The council moved back into the chambers earlier this summer, and we're still working with the integrator to work out some of the quirks and technical issues that we're experiencing with it. So hopefully that'll get resolved and up to speed. Brooklyn Park, we actually had a meeting yesterday with the consultant, and they're looking at redoing their council chambers over the next year, so they're starting that process. Robbinsdale, we had a kickoff meeting with city staff earlier this summer, it was a month or so ago, I guess. And so they're looking at what they're going to be doing with City Hall and the possible expansion of the DMV area there, and how that affects the chambers and replacing the chambers equipment. Osseo, it took a lot longer than we anticipated, but we finally do have now, in the last 2 weeks, have installed the capability to do hybrid meetings with them, or where they can include remote participants in their meeting. And we met with Plymouth yesterday also. They're considering adding broadcast capabilities to their big glass conference room that's next to the council chambers. I don't know if any of you have been there. It's a very challenging room, and so we asked the consultant to come and talk with them about that, and hopefully give them a proposal, and I'm glad I don't have to work on that project. So good luck with that one.
And I am many years away from retirement, so I can't creep out like Tim.
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay. Thank you,
So,
Tim.
Yep,
Thanks.
thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Next update, if you turn to the second to last page, is CCX Create, the studio you're standing in, and Javi hopping off his camera here. Again, we thank the crew for helping us out on the recording of these meetings and streaming of them. But Javi has been a busy man, as you see, traveling and finding some familiar faces in some distant cities. Javi, give us a little Create update if you would.
Yeah, of course. And first of all, good morning, everybody. Yeah, it's give me the opportunity to go to the ACM, which is Alliance for Community Media in Chicago, around June, the end of June, and I was able to kind of grasp some ideas, some new tech, and kind of talk to other committee members, not committee members, access people who work in the community in other states and the whole region, and just kind of share ideas of what they're doing or what ideas they're implementing into their access center. And also, I ran into Mike. It was kind of random. I heard his voice, and he's got that very distinctive voice. Followed that voice into the hallway, and I saw Mike talking to a whole bunch of group of folks. I was like, "Hey, Mike, remember me?" And he did. I was glad he did. And so with that, we also have some numbers here. These numbers kind of represent shows that were submitted throughout June to August. These numbers have been fluctuating, which are really good. Kind of shows you how many people are coming in and submitting programs. And at the very bottom, I have general topics, or genre and topics. And of course, our diversity and equity are starting to go up, which is really great. And one of the shows on there is called Disability Landscape, hosted by Charlie and Mark. They kind of showcase people who are going through some situations, being in a wheelchair, or just trying to seek help into other organizations, and they kind of want to put that information out there. And recently, they just had Don Shelby, former host, anchor from WCCO, so he was able to share some ideas and kind of talk on what they have going on, especially as someone who is in his young age and trying to figure out what else can they do out there. So and also a new member spotlight, I wanted to mention Max Gable. He's one of the new members that just recently came back. He actually started here when he was in junior high. I believe that was early '99. So fun fact about that guy, he just had a realization that he currently he just came back. His daughter is hitting junior high, and they just realized that she's starting at the same time as how he started here back in '99. So he was like, "Whoa, I didn't even realize that. That's pretty fun." Also, Colin, he's our new intern, so he just started here around the beginning of June. He's from North Hennepin Technical College, and he's going for film. So he's been a big help around here. He's been helping me out with Polka, with other productions, and kind of learning the basics. He's going to be kind of helping me out all the way till the end of December. So I'm very happy to have that guy around here. Also, one more thing about this, TriCaster 2 is one of our new equipments that's actually been being utilized in the control room at this moment, kind of switching back and forth. We have the Elite version, which is, to me, is a Lamborghini of all models, so we're very fortunate. Thank you, Dave and Jamie, for the recommendation for that model. And just one more thing, at the CCX Create Meetup, that's going to be on Wednesday, October 12th, which is next month. So if you would like to come through, please join us. What we plan to do is kind of talk and network with other volunteers and members around the community, kind of showcasing all the new equipment that we have or recently received, and kind of new ideas that we have coming for 2023. So we'll have food, we'll have drinks, we'll have laughs, and non-alcoholic drinks, of course. So just put that out there. But we will have some fun times, and if you have an idea, let me know. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Javi. And I'll finish up with the last page and a few other notes related to sports and events that I have from John Jacobson. Under CCX Media, a few things that we've been doing. Just wanted to point out that when there are special topics that come up from various cities, we have various tools through the Connection program that we can help get the message out. And that was the case with Maple Grove, with special ballot question information related to their community center, and some special funding related to the community center, the local option sales tax. So multiple segments within the Connection over actually the past year and a half, and then also many mayor's minutes with Mayor Mark Stephenson to talk about that issue. So as cities have looked to important things that are happening in their community, we have the ability through the Connection programming to be able to highlight those on a pretty regular basis if needed by the city. Videos to start the school year. We were happy to have Anoka Hennepin in many ways. So again, another creative services, revenue, a growing type of avenue that we've had here. The district has come in and brought in messages from their faculty, staff, students. We have done a convocation, 2 discipline videos, and a suicide prevention video with the Anoka Hennepin School District, all within the last month and a half. City's also finding more uses for video, and this was a neat opportunity to help out Maple Grove in this case. They had some training videos on alcohol compliance that they have been doing on a regular basis, but what they found is not all of the establishments could attend all of those meetings. So they said, what if we have an officer come into the studio, record the presentation, add graphics to it, and then be able to have that so if a new restaurant starts or someone wants the information in between the quarterly meetings that they have, it's available on videotape. And so we are happy to help them with that. We have another that we'll be working with them on related to HR and their attorney coming up in the next few weeks. And final note, again, the first place to turn for city event news. So we're happy to always help out the cities when they have city-related events or events that help out organizations, businesses in the community. And you see the hamburger there because Brooklyn Park had Restaurant Week. So we put together a special segment to highlight what the city was doing to promote restaurants in the community and eating locally and supporting those businesses. Few other sports notes, just to mention our production truck saw a lot of work over the year. And again, that truck is an older truck, but we're trying to put new equipment in it and keep it up to date. So Jamie, Tyler, Isaac spent a lot of hours in our garage rewiring that truck, and it was done in time for the start of the fall sports season, which is the next note. That season's underway. We kicked off with the big volleyball match with Wayzata, which is the defending state champion. That will continue out through the fall season here. We'll get to playoffs, believe it or not, in mid-October, so the season rolls along. And a final note, we have our final 2 parades in September. Osseo just happened this past week, so Lions Roar, a big success. You had people everywhere up and down the streets, Mark and Riley. And then the final parade is Plymouth. So Plymouth on Parade is this coming Saturday. So if you're available Saturday at 10:30 in the morning, we'll be on the corner of Plymouth Boulevard and 34th announcing that parade. Or you can see it on CCX Media Live as well. So that is the report.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. Anything else? All right. Is there a motion to adjourn, please? Thank you, Darryl.
Second.
Thank you. Moved and seconded. Everyone say aye. Sorry, just combobulated. Aye. The easiest motion of the day, and I couldn't get it right. All right, we are adjourned. Thank you very much. And I believe the executive committee is meeting.
Yeah,
after
we'll take a
this,
5-minute
right?
break, and then executive committees meet up in the conference room. Thank you for coming.